Yeah, that's one of the things. So after you told me that this was like the Black Plague, I want to just give you a description of how I responded to that. So we left our interview and I posted it as quickly as I could. And then I went upstairs and my wife and I made the decision that we were going to order everything that we thought we would need for the pregnancy that might be difficult to get. And so we ordered cribs and car seat and anything that we thought might have trouble getting through the borders or being transported. And then we slowed down. You know, we got everything that we needed and then started being more patient. I noticed that a bunch of my science friends and family members reacted really positive to me putting that out there, because I think up until I had spoken with you, they had thought that I was not very clear or not very taking it as seriously as they were, even though I was bunkered in my house. But then I went to look up the Black Plague, and that's where you're talking about.
So what did you discover about the Black Plague, Vance?
So there's downsides and upsides.
That it lasted over 2 centuries.
So this is an interesting thing that the first round of major Black Plague, as far as I have heard, lasted about 2 years, and it really leveled the entire playing field. It took the aristocracy and the peasants and it killed everybody equally. And once it got into your town or community, it made it so you weren't really able to travel. You couldn't just hop up and go to another town. People wouldn't accept you. It also wiped out 25% of the population or more, depending on who you talk to and what your boundaries are on that. No one's calling for that level of death.
The last major outbreak was in London in 1666, which was a couple of centuries after it first broke out in the 13th century. Interesting that it's 666. I won't go into biblical allegories, but it's fascinating that those numbers pop up from time to time in various places. But yeah, so over the course of the entire Black Plague pandemic in Europe, around half of Europeans were killed. They died. But coming out of that, we have the Renaissance. And so this is my hope with what's going on now, is that these are really difficult times and nobody wants to be where we are right now. But the hope for the future is that we come out of this stronger. We come out of this with more resolution about what's important in life and a resolution to rebuild society in a more positive way.
Just to stop you, you really think that level of death is possible in the U.S. from coronavirus?
No. We're not going to see 50% killed. Absolutely not. This is the first wave that's going through right now. The second wave, as the CDC director said yesterday, could be more deadly. I think it probably will be more deadly. It'll come in the fall. We're going to go through a series of waves, but nowhere near 50% of the population will die. This is not a killer on the level of Ebola and Black Plague. This is, it's worse than the worst seasonal flu we've ever experienced. But the important thing is that it is disrupting society in a way that nobody has ever experienced in recent historical memory. I'm not even talking about the 1918 pandemic, whatever. That's a sidebar. This is way more intense in terms of social destruction and economic destruction. And that is, that's what is most interesting to me now, because listen, most people who get this are not going to die. Most people aren't even symptomatic, from the serological studies that are being done now on large scales in Southern California, Germany, and places like that. So this is not a major killer like Ebola or Black Plague, but it is utterly disruptive to the entire social order of the world. And, we're all seeing that. And
is that because of the way that people reacted? Was there any way to stop the amount of social disruption that there is right now, or it was inevitable?
No, because when you have a new pandemic that erupts like this, especially one that's mutating rapidly as the virus is, which is why it's going to be so difficult to develop a vaccine, I would argue impossible in the near term, at least, for the next 5 or 10 years. But, with a new virus, with a new zoonotic outbreak like this, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's why everybody has to lock down. And that's why people are freaking out justifiably. Like, you don't know if it's the next Black Plague. You don't know if this is the next HIV epidemic or Ebola or whatever the hell it is. I mean, and the things we're discovering about the way this virus attacks our biology, attacks our brains. You know, if you're male, it attacks your testicles and may make you infertile. I mean, the stuff that's coming out is just crazy. And so, of course, no one wants to catch this. But it's not as big a killer as these other things. So I would argue that the fear of this is far greater, and, you know, therefore the social impact is far greater than the actual, you know, mortality rate.
So let's talk about this mutation of the virus. This is something that I heard early on, and then it kind of went away. And now I'm hearing people talk about there are different strains. Some are more deadly than others. In fact, I think I heard that from you. So how should we think about how this virus mutates and if there'll be multiple coronaviruses?
Well, so there is a website that is actually cataloging the known genetic sequences of the virus. And most of those, you know, they were sampled early on. The way things happen in any rapidly expanding population is that mutations kind of fan out. So you get mutations on mutations on mutations, and you get this kind of tree that kind of fans out like that based on mutational differences. If the rate of asymptomatic infection is as high as I think it is, and as the early data shows that it is, you know, I've said that there could be 1 billion people infected worldwide by the end of the summer. 1 billion people infected with an RNA virus means that the number of possible genetic variants in that viral genome is going to be enormous. Like, no, I mean, what we are seeing right now from the analyses of viral genome variation is literally a tiny little ice cube on the edge of a massive iceberg. And we don't know how big that iceberg is, but we have a sense that it's really scary. And we're in the Titanic, and we're about to hit it.
Good Lord, man. You have a way with, I think, with articulating the danger of it, because the biggest challenge is right now I wake up in St. Louis, Missouri. I look out the window. It's bright. It's sunny. I can go outside and exercise. I can get some work done. It doesn't seem to be that crazy to me. And then I watch people talking about the fact that they're running out of money, or that they're afraid they're going to have to go stand in food lines. So
Absolutely.
The fear of this iceberg relative to friends losing their jobs, people accepting layoffs is, you know, I think a rational person says, are we sure? Go ahead.
That heterogeneity in people's experiences, that is what will lead to bad decision-making, in my opinion. If we don't have clear direction from the very top that understands exactly how serious this is to the most vulnerable people in the country, one of the things to come out of all of the infections in New York is that we know that obesity is the major factor in whether people have to be hospitalized. America's approaching 50% obesity right now. You know, this year we're supposed to hit something close to 50%. The entire country is a simmering cauldron of susceptibility to, you know, hospitalizable infections from this thing. But on the other hand, like you said, you know, young people, healthy people who are, you know, fit and, you know, have the right genetic makeup, and that's another component of it. You know, you're like, why can't we get back to work? And this is what I want. I mean, this is part of a strategy that I'm trying to build out, that I'm writing up for a publication in the U.S. is, you know, everybody needs to get back to work. We want to get back to work. We have to do it smartly. So how do we create risk pools? So the people in the high risk pools, no, you're locked down. Essentially, in my opinion, these days, if you're over 60, you're retired. You can't come out of hiding. Like you can't go back to work again if you're over 60.
That will be so devastating to the American economy that it is unspeakable.
It will. So we have to change the way the economy works. But if you are a healthy person with the right genetic risk profile in your 20s or 30s, absolutely get back out there. Start up the economy again, man.
You know what? This may sound crazy. One of the things that happened with the Black Plague is that the aristocracy, the old hierarchy system, got leveled in some ways because the labor pool, they were able to, it used to be you were tied to the land, and part of the royalty said, you go work for this guy and you don't really have a choice.
This is one of the dawn of the Renaissance that led into the Industrial Revolution. I mean, land became less important after that happened. And, you know, workers could basically demand their own salaries. The world became much richer.
Yeah, 4 times as much they were able to charge for their days. So they were able to do a regular day's work and get 3 to 4 times worth of pay for it. So for the people that survived and the people that were able to move around and find those working arrangements, it was the flipping of the order that many people in society have been calling for a long time. I mean, like, there's a reason that okay boomer language gets in there, and it's because of a generation thinking the people older than us are holding us back. And you're suggesting that's actually the only way to hold back the tide is to keep the 60-year-olds out and let the young people start taking over big swaths of the economy.
Do you have grandparents who are alive?
Not on my side, no.
What about parents? How old?
My dad is 78, so my mother is 68.
73. She's going to be 74 this year. And she hasn't been out of her house for 6 weeks. And I've told her, like, you may never leave that house again during your lifetime. That's how serious this is.
Spencer, man, you are out there on the edge as far as my world. What you're saying is so contrary to what people think is possible that they're either pulling their trucks over to the side of the road and calling their parents to tell them how dangerous it is, or they're laughing because they think that you're a crazy person.
And again, it's because of the heterogeneity in outcomes, because we don't completely understand everything about what affects that. If you're infected, you know, the majority of people seem to be asymptomatic. Okay, so it's easy to pass this off as a common cold for those people. Other people, healthy triathletes in their mid-20s, die within days. Until we understand why that happens, it's scary as F.
and you think it's more scary than people getting in their cars and driving into work and the number of car accidents and the flu and the random death that happens just in the world?
Every decision that is made from here on out has to be based on science and reason. It has to be based on facts and data. You cannot make decisions based on economic desire or politics. That will kill people.